Hello, everybody. This is Senator Ron Johnson. I want to thank you for hanging on the line and sticking with my 133rd telephone town hall. If you're listening on the phone and you want to do more than listen, you want to ask a question, press *3 at any time. You'll be connected with one of my staff members and put in line to ask a question. If you're listening online, you can submit a question through the question box at the bottom of your screen. So online, just go to the bottom of your screen. There's a question box. Submit the question. We've already got a couple of those in here. But if you're listening on the phone and you want to ask a question live, press *3 at any time during the call to get put into line. I really encourage people to do that. This is some pretty amazing technology. Since first 132 telephone town halls, we've dialed out to roughly 10 million Wisconsinites. I've answered just shy of 1,800 questions. Today we're calling out to 80,000 Wisconsinites. Don't want that to intimidate you. There won't be 80,000 people on the call. There will be thousands. But when you're asking the question, it's just like we're talking on the phone. And the beauty of being Wisconsin's U.S. Senator is Wisconsinites are really nice. We're very respectful people. We know how to disagree agreeably, and that's been the hallmark of these telephone town halls. I encourage people who disagree with me to get on the phone and ask those questions, but we do it with a great deal of respect. So I wouldn't expect anything different here today. So again, if you want to ask a question, press *3 at any time to ask a question. If you're online, just submit your question through at the bottom of your screen there. We'll take our first online question here from Gay. Is an online question. He says, "Are you personally working to end the shutdown? You have friends across the aisle you can talk to." Well, Gay, I actually proposed two, I think, pretty significant pieces of legislation. One was the Eliminate Shutdowns Act. That would eliminate shutdowns for all time. It's a pretty simple bill. No bells or whistles. It just simply creates automatic 2-week rolling continuing appropriations for any department that hasn't been funded by an appropriation. Gives the appropriators all the time they need to fund something without shutting down the government or using government workers as pawns in this dysfunction. That unfortunately was voted down. Even Republican appropriators voted against that. Could not believe it. The excuse they gave is it would undercut this vaunted sacrosanct appropriation process. And let me describe this appropriation process. Appropriators on both sides of the aisle were complaining that I would undercut with my Eliminate Shutdown Act. I've been here 15 years, should have passed 180 appropriation bills before the start of the fiscal year is going to fund. We've passed 6. So that, vaunted sacrosanct appropriation process that my Eliminate Shutdown Act supposedly was going to undercut has a 96.7% failure rate. Sorry, appropriators, I'm not buying it. But seeing as we're not doing that, seeing as the Democrats, I think today will probably vote for the 14th time on a clean CR, same type of CR that they voted for 13 times on the Biden administration at President Biden's spending levels, which they also voted for. They'll probably vote against that 14th time, so they're not going to open up the government, not yet. Barring that, I've also proposed, and we voted on the Shutdown Fairness Act, which is just pay the people that were being forced to work. And I've even gone so far to work with Democrats, and I've agreed to include furloughed workers as well. We're going to pay them anyway. There's a law dating back 2019. So I've done everything I can. I've talked to their unions. I think the unions want to support this. We need to get the Democrats to say, yeah, we're going to actually do it. So we'll see whether or not they take yes for an answer if they're not willing to open up the government. At least pay the people who are going to get paid anyway. Pay them on time so that we don't have... again, pay the military, pay the people, law enforcement, keeping us safe, pay the air traffic controllers to keep our skies safe and keep the airlines actually running on time. You'll notice we've been a lot more flight delays here recently because they haven't been getting paychecks. But, Gabe, thanks for your online question. Next, we'll go to Karina. This is a Facebook question. Karina says, why do you want insurance premiums to double or triple for hardworking Americans? Well, Karina, I don't want premiums to double or quadruple, which is why I voted against or campaigned against Obamacare. It is Obamacare. It's the faulty design of Obamacare that has caused premiums to skyrocket. Where you are hearing in a small subset of people whose premiums, what they pay might double. Their premiums are doubling. they're probably going about 30% because of Obamacare, the faulty design, forcing everybody in the individual market to cover the full cost of covering people with pre-existing conditions because they eliminated high-risk pools that could have been tweaked to do it at a fraction of the cost. But anyway, the stories you're hearing are people who make over 400% of the poverty line. So for a family, it's like $120,000 per year income. They were getting subsidies with the enhanced temporary pandemic subsidies. That's something Democrats passed on their own. Democrats scheduled them to expire because they were supposed to be temporary. So those subsidies are going away. So those individuals who make, for a family over $120,000, they got 7 subsidies. Those subsidies are going away. So they paid this year, out of pocket because they had heavy subsidies. Now they have to be paying the full boat plus a 30% increase in premiums. The only reason more Americans don't realize what a failure Obamacare has been is the subsidies have always masked the true cost, the true failure of Obamacare. So no, I don't want to see premiums double and triple. The way to prevent that is scrap Obamacare, because it dismantled the individual market. It outlawed things like short-term plans and high-dollar catastrophic plans in place, put catastrophic plans with high deductibles with really high premiums. So again, Obamacare has been a disaster. The media doesn't accurately report it. Obviously, Democrats don't, but that's the truth. I'd be happy to work with Democrats to repair the damage done by Obamacare and transition to a system that actually works by giving people more freedom, put the money in their pocket, let them to buy whatever insurance policies they want, bring free choice back into insurance. The benefits free market system would work amazingly well. But Karina, thanks for your question. Unfortunately, it was so misguided. I think we'll go to our first live caller now. We'll go to Margaret in Kenosha. Margaret, thanks for staying online. What's your question?
I'm wondering how you senators and the House of Representatives can get your pay when there are people out here that are going without, wondering how they're going to pay their mortgage because of the shutdown. And the end of SNAP benefits, how are people going to survive? Can you answer me that? I don't understand how you guys can keep getting your money and everybody else just gets screwed.
Well, first of all, Margaret, as I laid out earlier, I've proposed a couple solutions to this. The Eliminate Shutdowns Act, we never have to have this problem again. The Shutdown Fairness Act, we would pay people. Okay, it's Democrats that refuse to take yes for an answer. They keep voting no when I keep voting yes on the continuing resolution, which I'm not that nuts about. I don't like the fact that it runs out right before Thanksgiving. I don't like the spending levels, but I'm voting yes to end the shutdown. Now, in terms of members of Congress getting paid, it's a constitutional requirement. I tried in previous shutdowns to not get paid. You still get your checks. So what I've always done, I've always donated whatever got paid. Well, previously, I've sent it right back to the federal government. I write a check to the U.S. Treasury. This year, and I've discussed this with my wife, we're not even going to wait to see when this shutdown ends. I'm donating my entire salary to 2 charities this year. Half of it goes to the Joseph Project. The other half is going to go to React 19. These are people injured by the COVID injection. So I'm not going to get any pay this year. I'm donating it to 2 very worthy charities, Joseph Project, which helps transform people's lives, and React 19, which helps pay for medical bills who were grievously injured by the COVID injections. So anyway, Margaret, that's what I'm doing. Doing everything I can to end this shutdown. Talk to Tammy Baldwin about voting yes, and maybe we can end this thing. Next up, we'll go to Tony in Milwaukee. Tony, thanks for staying online. What's your question? Hello, Tony.
Hello.
Yeah, Tony, you're up to play here. What's up?
Sorry. Hey, Senator Johnson. First off, huge supporter of yours. Would you be in favor of term limits for everybody? The president has term limits, but senators and Congress people do not have term limits. Would you be in support of term limits?
So, Tony, I have been. It require a constitutional amendment. What I would caution, though, is it can't be too short. It's interesting, the people that, when I first got here in 2010, they were pushing term limits. on a national level, again, they pushed it. They found out, okay, law won't work. You have to have a constitutional amendment. But they succeed in the states. Those people are not very happy with the results. And here's the reason, is your elected representatives is really the only connection voters have to this place. If you turn members over too quickly, staff just takes over. So you've got the bureaucrats and staff running the joint completely unaccountable to the electorate. So you actually need members here long enough to get their sea legs underneath them, to understand the dysfunction of this place, try and cope with it. So again, I think, for example, an average CEO of a large corporation spends about 10 to 15 years. So a term limit in that range, I think, would be reasonable, but it has to be done constitutionally. I would support that. But the better thing is the vote is the term limit, and it is actually quite amazing what level of turnover there is. I know there's some people who've been here a long time. That's actually more the exception than the rule, particularly in the House, but also in the Senate. There's a fair amount of churn, a lot of turnover here, partly due because it's so freaking dysfunctional and frustrating that people get fed up and they leave. But Tony, appreciate the question. Thanks for staying on the call. Next, go to Mark in Waukesha. Mark, thanks for staying on the line. What's your question?
Yeah, first, thank you for all you're doing. Second, I am recently disabled. I became disabled last year. I'm on Social Security, disability, and everything now. Right now, I'm living and I'm paying 70% rent. I'm trying, and I have applied for low-income housing in Lamira, but it's being held up right now. I'm just wondering if the shutdown is causing delays in housing approvals, or if you know anything about that.
Well, Mark, first of all, sorry to hear about your disability, and God bless you. You're in our prayers. I would really recommend that you go online. The easiest way to do this, and contact my Oshkosh office, with Milwaukee office, and we'll do everything we can to connect you to affordable housing, in terms of whatever connections and things we have. Just in general, in terms of affordable housing, again, it's not good that we've been devaluing our dollar with these massive deficits, and this is not such a big deal in Wisconsin, but in other areas where permitting is awful, you can't afford things. I mean, right now they're going to elect a communist in New York, and they're going to put rent control, which is the absolute worst thing if you want to have affordable housing. Nobody wants to invest in housing if they can't make a profit on it. So again, the socialist, communist ideas on this stuff, things like rent control, is awful and exacerbates the problem. So you need to be able to permit things quickly. Quit devaluing the dollar, and housing will be a whole lot more affordable. But again, I really do encourage you, Mark, reach out to our office, either in Milwaukee or Oshkosh, and we'll get one of my staff members. We got a 3-word mission statement for our Senate office to help people like you, and we'll do everything we can to advise you where you may be able to find some affordable housing. Okay, but God bless you, Mark. Thanks for staying on the line, and hope we can help you. Next, we'll go to Lon in Sun Prairie. Well, Lon, thanks for staying on the line. What's your question?
Yes, I'd like to know when Congress will address the Social Security shortfall issue.
Well, Lon, I wish I could say we were doing it right now, but we're not. We're exacerbating the problem. I'm the guy, kind of a lone voice, saying that after COVID, we probably ought to return to a reasonable level of pre-COVID spending, which we didn't do on a bipartisan basis. Nobody wanted to, touch anything, and so we're still, we went from $4.4 trillion in spending to 6.5 the year of the pandemic, and really never looked back. This year we'll spend over $7 trillion. So the number one thing we can do to try and make to keep our ability to honor the promises when the trust fund runs out in about 2033, 2034, would be to make sure we have minimal deficits so we can fund those benefits, honor those promises out of the general fund. But unfortunately, when George W. Bush tried to create some individual accounts for people screamed at privatizing Social Security. So, people haven't touched out, they won't touch the 10-foot pole because it's been so politically poisonous. So I think it's very unfortunate. We don't talk honestly about how horribly Social Security's been managed throughout the years. I mean, all that money, all that surplus, we're accumulating surpluses for, since its inception till I think around 2010 or so. We had surpluses, but we didn't save those. We spent the money. It's gone. Its place. We put government bonds, which has zero value to the federal government. A U.S. government bond in the hand of the U.S. government has no value. It's just like writing yourself a piece of paper. It says $20. Say you got $20. No, you don't. You just have a piece of paper. So again, Social Security was horribly mismanaged. It's a legalized Ponzi scheme. It's a pay-as-you-go system, and it's a Ponzi scheme that's about ready to run out here in about 2033. And you're right. Nobody's really paying attention to it. And even worse, we're ignoring these massive deficits, and we continue to spend at post-COVID level, which we shouldn't do. We should return to a reasonable pre-pandemic level of spending, which I laid out 3 different options. They were all summarily rejected by both parties. So, Lon, I hate to say that, but it's the truth. Thanks for your question. I share your concern. Next, we'll go to Harry in Kenosha. Hello, Harry. Thanks for being on the call. What's your question?
Hi, good afternoon. I just had a question about with the shutdown. Do you feel like I know it's mainly the Democrats voting no, except for I saw one Republican. Do you feel like they're holding it up just to get past these midterms? I know we have a few elections across the country coming up, and I was actually very surprised to see Fetterman come out and kind of chastise the Democrats, saying, hey, we need to open it up and not use this as a political football of sorts to hold people's paychecks hostage while they try to negotiate things in the Senate.
Well, Harry, it's amazing you mentioned John Fetterman. By the way, he really is getting better, which is good to see. So, I mean, he's healing. But he also comes from a swing state like Wisconsin. It's kind of amazing when you're a senator from a swing state and you have to get voters from all over the state, how you try and understand the viewpoint of the other side. And so that's one of the reasons he's voting with us. But no, I mean, Democrats decided to shut the government down because they are the ones that scheduled the temporary COVID subsidies on Obamacare to expire. What those subsidies have done is they've masked the failure of Obamacare. And they can't tolerate politically if the failure of Obamacare becomes unmasked. Because that was their signature achievement, right? It was their devious plan to move to a single-payer system, and that plan did not honor the promises that President Obama made. Remember, he said, if you like your doctor health care plan, you can keep it. That was 2013's lie of the year. We knew before implemented that wasn't going to happen. Secondly, President Obama said that a family of 4 would save up to $2,500 a year in premiums. Their premiums have skyrocketed. I've got a chart, we're honing it, showing state by state, even though inflation has increased 39% since the implementation of Obamacare, premiums are up almost as high as 500% in some states. On average, it's probably a couple 100%, 3, 4, 5 times the rate of inflation. I'll have that chart, I'll have those numbers, I'll be able to say definitively what those things are. But no, it's the whole strategy has been to bludgeon Republicans into continue those enhanced subsidies to continue to mask the failure of Obamacare. I think this strategy is backfiring on them, but unfortunately, they're punishing federal employees along the way, as well as Americans who are experiencing flight delays. Our military members who aren't getting paid or won't get paid. It's really a shame what they're doing to mask the failure of Obamacare. But Harry, thanks for staying online. Appreciate your question. If you want to ask a question, again, I'll remind you, press *3 at any time. You'd be connected to a staff member, get in line to ask your question. So press *3 if you want to ask a question. Next, go to Edward in Sheboygan. Edward, thanks for staying online. What's your question?
Yes. So I was wondering how we could go about, or what process we as a people could help with getting it so that we can have the Congress have the income during government shutdowns be taken and not being paid, and your thoughts on having a fine for every day that the shutdown is in place. And this is not meant for pushing a lot onto the Republicans, because it seems like the Republicans don't want that to go, don't want the government shutdown to be happening. So there'll probably be amendments to have it where everybody's on board with stopping it. There would be like a reduced fine, but those who are perpetuating the problem will have more of a fire under their butt to, stop it or fix it or find a solution to the problem. Otherwise, it will be a bigger problem for themselves.
So Edward, let me just step in and say you're misdiagnosing the problem. The problem is you have the uniparty, appropriators from both parties. This is the well-honed process they use to pass budgets or pass appropriations that we can't afford. Okay,
yes.
This is what the big spenders do. Again, it is dysfunctional. It looks dysfunctional. But this is a well-honed process for forcing appropriation bills to be passed. These 2,000-page omnibus spending bills get dropped on our desk the day before Christmas. Nobody knows what's in them. Loaded up with all kinds of pork barrel spending, all kinds of earmarks. This is their process, which is why even Republican appropriators voted against the solution. The solution is the Eliminate Shutdown Act. We'd never have to have another shutdown ever. And it doesn't undercut the appropriation process. It just sets up a rolling 14-day continuing appropriation for any department that haven't passed an appropriation bill. So if there's agreement on, say, 5 of the 12 bills, pass those departments stay open. The other 7, you do an appropriation. And you do that continuing appropriation, the automatic one, until the appropriators in Congress passes an appropriation bill. If they don't pass, you just keep spending at last year's levels. Again, no drama, no punishing federal employees for our dysfunction here. I understand where you're going with this. It's just completely unnecessary. And by the way, the appropriators would never agree to that fine, because this is the process they want to keep in place to maintain their position of power here in this alternate universe called Washington, D.C. It's sick.
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. I'm disgusted by it, which is why I've proposed Eliminate Shutdown Acts, why I'm proposing Shutdown Fairness Act to at least pay these people that are being used as pawns in this sick game. But again, let's focus on the actual solution, which literally would be a very simple bill. It's not very long at all. The Eliminate Shutdown Act. Most Republicans voted for it, but many appropriators, Republican appropriators, actually joined every Democrat in opposing it. So that's the real solution, Edward. Thanks for staying on the line. Appreciate the question. I'll remind people again, if you want to ask a question, press 3 at any time to get stuck in line. Next, we'll go to David in Balsam Lake. David, thanks for staying in line. What's your question?
Yeah, my question has to do with the big, beautiful bill. I think originally, if I remember right, you were kind of against it, and then because it expanded the federal government's budget, then after meeting with President Trump, you said you got from him a commitment to move towards reduced government spending. And I just want you to, if you could define that for me, when can we expect to see that? I just want to know what that kind of means.
Sure. Well, again, I started out with my column in the Wall Street Journal on January 1st of this year, talking about returning to a reasonable pre-pandemic growth spending. And we were pushing, I think maybe when I said that Donald Trump committed to a reasonable pre-pandemic level, this was after one of our meetings in the White House. I think this was the Budget Committee, where I laid out those levels. He seemed pretty excited about how I was analyzing it, the different variances, how much more we were spending over, fully inflated 2019 or 2014 or 1998. So he loved the concept. And the reason I continue to be outspoken and not happy with the One Big Beautiful Bill up to the moment when I had to vote for it, because I didn't want taxes, a massive tax increase to automatically take place, and my holding out would have just made the bill even more expensive. In the end, we did reduce. Yeah. In the end, we did reduce spending. I think $300 or $400 billion. I'll still say it didn't meet the moment. It wasn't even close to being adequate. But again, you have to look at the totality of the piece of legislation. I don't think you wanted your taxes increased. We would have been facing a $3 to $4 trillion tax increase, which would have been harmful economically. And by the way, on a bipartisan basis, nobody wanted to increase taxes. Democrats were in the same position. They could have completely repealed the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act. They didn't do that. They didn't repeal any of the tax cuts. They left them all in place, which just shows that nobody wanted to increase taxes. I agree with that position. What I wanted was much more significant spending reductions. We got some, but not enough. But that's I've been pretty upfront about it. Trust me, President Trump was not happy with me throughout the entire process. He's still not happy with me by being as honest and straightforward and outspoken as I was. But David, appreciate you staying in line. Appreciate your question. Next, go to Kara in Madison. Kara, thanks for staying in line. What's your question?
Hi, Senator. There are reports that since we've been sending so many billions of dollars of aid abroad, for example, the $40 billion to Argentina, I'm just wondering how Congress is going to maintain the constitutional power of the purse in situations like this. Can you explain how spending is authorized and what steps you support to ensure full transparency and accountability in foreign aid?
So Kara, as I understand it, and I think this is accurate, we're not spending money. What we did is a currency swap to help stabilize the Argentinian peso, which is at a very low level. And all indications are now by stabilizing that currency within that currency swap, in other words, we bought pesos, and we'll probably make a lot of money on that investment. Scott Bessent, this is how that's how he made money in the private sector. He traded currency. So he knows what he's doing here. So I think it was his proposal. It was either $30 or $40 billion of pesos that we bought, and at a very low price. And because we helped stabilize the peso, and because the president there got reelected, everybody's more optimistic about it. And I think the value of the peso has gone up. And right now we're definitely in the black on that one, and we'll actually make money on that currency swap. So it wasn't spending, it wasn't appropriation, it was a currency swap, which we'll probably make money on. But Kara, it's a good question. I'm glad you're thinking that way, and appreciate your question. So next we'll go to Brian in Winnebago. Brian, thanks for staying online. What's your question?
Oh, thank you very much, Ron, for taking my call. It's been 7 years since I've gotten a call back, so I appreciate this. I just have a couple comments. I don't agree with you on big, beautiful bill. I believe it is a complete gift to billionaires. The average family does not get the benefits as much as a billionaire would. Kara's question I thought was awesome. I do have a question, though. Why President Trump can do what he's doing, and I guess this is my question to you. Why is President Trump allowed to do the things he's doing without any congressional or House approval? I don't agree that $40 billion to Argentina was a call that he could make on his own. And I guess it was, are you not upset with all the things that this administration is doing without approval from the House and Congress? Thank you.
Okay, and I think that Congresses for decades authority to the executive branch. I think it's primarily to absolve themselves of accountability. So that's been going on a long time. Presidents generally happily and then expand it. President Obama did it with deferred arrivals, which in the end was ruled, I guess, not necessarily unconstitutional, but overturned by the Supreme Court. President Biden on the eviction moratorium, on student loan payment, and he just kept going back and doing it again. The Supreme Court would overrule him, and he kept. In the end, all this stuff would be adjudicated by the courts. President Trump, I think, actually has a pretty good track record in the courts. People saying what he's doing is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court keeps upholding, doesn't win all of them. but he's pushing the envelope. Again, as I explained to Kara, that wasn't an expenditure. We swapped currency. We'll probably make money on it. So
Yeah,
no, I think Congress should constitutional authority.
Please.
But this is on a bipartisan basis. Has been happening. Okay. The Brian on the line, and next we'll go to Steve in Brooklyn. Steve, thanks for staying in line. What's your question?
Well, I have a lot more questions, but I'll stick to my original question. The big, beautiful bill. You talk about it and you complain about expenditures since COVID, but what do you do with the big, beautiful bill? You guys give the billionaires a huge tax break, and yes, tax class, and the tax wasn't even. So, you know, you can't complain about expenditures if you're creating these huge tax breaks for billionaires.
Well, Steve, first of all, with respect, actually wrong. We extended the Act, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, cutting people's taxes, the people who pay the most. Yeah, they get bigger tax cuts than somebody who barely pays any taxes, but they still get a tax break. So as I said, even Democrats, even Democrats under Biden, when they had both chambers in the presidency, they didn't repeal any of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. They didn't want to raise taxes either, and I agree. The one big beautiful bill didn't give tax breaks for billionaires. We just increased taxes. The new tax cuts are directed toward working Americans. No tax on tips. Reductions and limitations on tax on overtime and Social Security. Those aren't for billionaires. So, Steve, you're just
those don't amount to anything if you look at
you ought to MSNBC and you ought to read Wall Street Journal. Steve, appreciate you staying on the line. Appreciate the question. Next, we'll go to Lauren in Manitowoc. Lauren, thanks for staying in line. What's your question?
Hi, I'm just wondering if you are willing to take any responsibility for your part in this shutdown. You seem to be blaming everyone else, but Republicans. It's not just the Democrats. You guys also are causing a problem. So will you be taking responsibility as well? Or just backing down?
Lauren, I don't like continuing resolution on the table right now. It expires before. That's the well-honed process.
Yeah, but you keep blaming the Democrats.
Let me answer the question, okay? So I don't like the CR. It's spending at President Biden budget levels, which I think is too high. But I've 13 times. Tammy Baldwin has voted against it 13 times. It's the only way to open up the government. Again, the Republicans...
It's not. Tell yourself that.
The Republicans in the House did something incredibly reasonable. They passed a CR like Democrats passed 13 times under Biden at President Biden's levels. But they did it fiscal year. All we had to do is do that CR, and this wouldn't even be happening. But again, Democrats are trying to make a big deal over the subsidies that they scheduled to expire, mask the. So no, I keep voting for CR, but I keep voting for it so we don't shut down government. Eliminate Shutdown Act. It would eliminate all shutdowns. I've got the bill, Shutdown Fairness Act. I don't know. I don't think I should take any blame, so I'm not going to. Stay online. Appreciate your question. Next, we'll go to John in Oklahoma. What's your question?
Hello, sir. I appreciate your support of Bobby Kennedy. I was an Eau Claire campaign lead on his campaign. But regarding military spending, I got the opposite of the previous caller. With your support with the increased military spending, I think it's like $100 billion or something like that. That was a big part of the big wave, red wave, that elected so many Republicans, was we're sick of unnecessary wars. There hasn't been a necessary war since World War II. And giving our money to countries that are committing genocides and, military complex. the Pentagon, they can't pass an audit that has like trillions of dollars, I believe, missing. They don't know where it goes. Like, how is it responsible to give money to an organization that has no idea what they're doing with it? It just isn't.
Disagree with you that the spends a lot of money. It does, okay? But I actually agree with President Reagan and Trump that you achieve peace through strength. Where the modern military capability of well decimating the Iranian nuclear, taking out its air defense systems, that's maintained peace. The fact that we have a credible military threat maintains peace. So again, so much, I'm sure we could spend it much more wisely. There was a great piece written by Eric Prince. I think it's actually called "Too Big to Win." But again, he's expert at this. Just talking about that we're always fighting the last war, and we're not focusing enough on drone technology, that kind of stuff. I think more efficiently, but unfortunately, I'm not managing. What I can do is really vote, and in the end, I've got to vote to support the finest among us who risk their lives, and I want them to have the most up-to-date and modern equipment to protect them. It's far from perfect. I think we probably spend more than we need to, but it's the top priority of government, and not overspend on something. I'd rather do it on the military than anything else. I appreciate it. Again, I can't say as I totally disagree with you, but we obviously we're not in total agreement. Next, go to Steve in Genoa City. Steve, thanks for staying online. What's your question?
Focus on Fauci. I just want to know if there's any updates on pursuing him for his parables that he did to this country. Also, thinks that he has him lying under oath for his support of funding the research in China and all that. Just if there's any updates on that or progress doing the guy.
Well, first of all, Steve, I think we know an awful lot. I mean, it's been obvious to me that Fauci's a really bad person. I mean, the emails that were heavily redacted prove redactions. The real Anthony Fauci, if you haven't read it, read it. I mean, this is a bad person, okay? And he surrounded himself with a bunch of bad people as well. So we know an awful lot. Get more details. Bobby Kennedy promised radical transparency, but there was a lot of resistance inside HHS. Finally, we got about 500,000 pages of documents. That takes. We're actually kind of letting Senator Paul concentrate on that, whereas I'm trying to concentrate just on the overall capture and corruption of our federal health agencies by big food. I'm a private sector guy, but I got a problem when big businesses use their influence and power to capture federal agencies and turn those regulatory agencies to their benefit, to the detriment of consumers and the competitors. So I'm focused on Senator Paul's investigation on Fauci, and I don't like duplicating effort. As I say, I'm a mosquito and nudist colony. It's a target-rich environment, so I don't really have much updates. But quite honestly, I don't know much more about Fauci. I think he's a criminal. I think he's a really bad person. Unfortunately, President Biden in the auto pen gave him a pardon. I'm not, I'm all opposing people and doing everything I can to help Senator Paul in his investigatory efforts as well. So, but I've got really nothing new to report. But Steve, pretty interested in it and your question. Next, we'll go to Mark in Milwaukee. Mark, thanks for staying online. What's your question?
It's U.S. vet, and I am curious as to how you ratify or justify the destruction of the what was below it.
I think you may be talking about the east wing of the White House that's going to be turned into a event space.
Space my ass.
Well, I mean, it's a 900,000 person ballroom. So again, the White House has gone over numerous additions and additions. Just because Trump's, I guess there's an outcry. I guess I don't have a real big issue with it. I've been in the White House many times. There are things in the update of the East Wing. I've just never really. I've walked through it. I really don't even know I've never. Again, I think it's the First Lady, so apparently the First Lady was okay with this as well. So again, I understand people who just hate Trump. This, I think it's probably a good thing that we're getting a free edition. I'm sure it'll be first class. I know his renovation of the Rose Garden was really nice. Now they can use that space because they paved it, and it's actually usable as opposed to kind of muddy grass that space when a lot of people want to use the White House for that type of thing. So, Mark, appreciate you staying in line. Appreciate your question. Next, go to Ashley in Green Bay. Ashley, line. What's your question?
Hi. Yeah. What is the Republican plan to replace health care? Because I respect and understand that there's a lot of criticism with the ACA. The original bill, back in whatever years ago, was what it was. And I took a hack it is now. And there are some issues with it. Subsidies go right back into insurance companies' pockets. So I understand that's kind of like the student loan issue. However, there's a lot of criticism from you and the Republicans shutting down the government because they want to expand these subsidies that hide this Obamacare issue. But you guys don't even have a real plan to replace it, just repeal it. So what is the actual health care plan so millions of Americans aren't just stuck without health care?
Sure. Well, actually, I will agree that in 2017, Republicans completely blew it. I never liked, and I spoke out about the slogan repeal and replace. Talk about repair the damage done by and I'm working right now with Senator Rick Scott, who created probably the largest hospital association in America. So he's a real expert on it. I talk very consistently in terms of what we do. It's all do it. Democrats had 60 votes to ram this through. We've never even come close to that. So the only vehicle we have to do health care is through reconciliation, and we're constrained. Parliamentarian says, oh, that's more policy than budget related. So we never really had the ability to do a fulsome, again, repair the damage care, because they passed that with 60 votes. Some of it was reconciliation, but a lot of it was with 60 votes. So we would need that capability, or convince a parliamentarian that do what she may have ruled in the past was policy, actually is budgetary. But the overall, what Obamacare did is it removed even more so, the benefits of a free market system, particularly in the individual market. It also did a great deal of damage with incentivizing states to sign up single, able-bodied, working-age childless adults that are really crowding out disabled children just in providers, because providers make more money off the single adults. So you've got to recognize the damage done by Obamacare, understand the benefits, completely dismantled the individual market where you had short-term plans, catastrophic plans. I mean, people had the free choice to buy the insurance that was paid as opposed to kind of the fits-all. The main problem with Obamacare on the individual markets, it forced, because they did away with high-risk pools, which could have been tweaked to cover pre-existing conditions at minimal cost. They did away with those, and instead they forced a small percentage of Americans. Now it's supposedly 24, but forced that small percentage of American public to pick up the full cost of covering people with pre-existing conditions. So again, completely destroyed, ignored free market and free choice, and that's our problem right now. So it's that we don't have the tools, the legislative ability, because of our limit. We don't have 60 votes or more than that to do it legislatively. We need Democrats' help. They're interested in helping. State denial. They're still just spending hundreds of billions of dollars on subsidies to mask the failure of Obamacare. So that's where we're at. But no, I mean, Republicans have all kinds of ideas. It's, free market principles, fund HSA accounts, short-term plans. catastrophic plans combined with HSAs, bring consumerism back into the marketplace. That's what controls costs. That produces transparency, which we don't have now, as we've pretty much turned healthcare into a complete third-party payer system where nobody knows what anything costs, and as a result, kind of the sky's the limit in terms of charge. But Ashley, appreciate you staying on the line. Appreciate your question. Next, go to Michael in Milwaukee. Thanks for staying on the line. But again, if you want to ask a question, press *3 at any point in time. But Michael, go ahead.
Yes, Senator. I was wondering on your take, the president's current actions in terms of blowing up ships and or really just boats the coast of. What do you think Congress should or could and should do to express proper?
Well, first of all, the drug be considered an act of war. I mean, we lost approximately 100,000 people to drug overdoses. We're not dealing with a legitimate nation. Maduro government is not a legitimate narco-terrorist state. We just had Secretary Marco Rubio into our Senate last couple of weeks. His focus in the Senate was always in South America, Central America, South America. And now he has access to what he calls exquisite intelligence. When I was secured, I went down to Southern Command and we talked about interdiction. We were maybe interdicting 10% of the drug flow into this country. In manufacturing, 10% is called scrap. It's just cost of doing business. So you'll never solve the problem. Again, Secretary of State Rubio said that we have exquisite intelligence. We know exactly what are, what's on them. If we didn't, you'd be hearing all kinds of complaints and stories of innocent people being killed. They're not innocent. They're drug runners. They're narco-terrorists. And 10%, as you can imagine, the number of boats trafficking drugs is way down. So I actually support the action. I think they are engaged in a war against us, and I think it's perfectly legitimate for us to be in the water.
Are you saying?
Thanks for staying online. Appreciate your question. Next, go to Rachel in Chicago. Rachel, thanks for staying on the question.
Hi, thank you so much for doing these town halls and for taking my question. My question is about the ICE raids, and I'm wondering if you or any of you about kind of the optics around it. It looks like ICE agents are not in uniforms, they're unidentified, fully masked, and using unmarked vehicles, which really comes across as looking like abductions, and it makes it hard to determine if these are official people taking other people off of the streets. And my fear is that we're normalizing people in broad daylight and being put into unmarked vehicles and driven away. And furthermore, I fear that it erodes the trust in our true law enforcement and armed services.
So Rachel, first of all, the enormous mess left to the Trump administration by the Biden administration is difficult to clean up. I mean, millions of people, and there are a lot of really bad people, sex traffickers, people of transnational criminal organizations, people, members of the most vicious gangs in the world came flooding in here. So cleaning the mess is not easy. It is unfortunate that we have an opposition party that is targeting federal law enforcement, outing people are, putting their lives at risk. So I support federal law enforcement, and I certainly abhor the fact that people are trying to out them and put their lives at risk, which is one of the reasons they've got to have a mask on, one of the reasons they have to go in unmarked cars. In the opposition party that are undermining federal law enforcement. So again, it's not a pretty sight. I don't like to, again, I'm hoping it's true, criminal element, but if you're not committing crimes, but you're living with people that are targets of these ICE raids in this country illegally, well, they can't from that standpoint either. So you end up with people that are, look more sympathetic toward, but in the end, we've got an enormous mess to clean up, and it's just not easy to do, and it's not pretty. But Rachel, thanks for staying. Next, go to Christopher in Kenosha. Well, Christopher, thanks for staying online. What's your question?
Yeah, hey. Right now. But I wanted to ask you about the political rhetoric that is going on and stemming from it, not just on one side, but both. And what you or would like to see to correct it so that it's not a party versus a party, that we're all here in this country and we should all for this country.
You're from Kenosha, which burned because of the thousands of peaceful protests that turned into riots and caused kind of damage in Kenosha that day too. I mean, that was all generated from the left. I know you say it's both sides. Yeah, I know we had January 6th, and I condemn that as well. I try not to use political rhetoric. I mean, I tell people the truth. I'm very straightforward. I'm reasonably blunt, but I do it with a pretty moderate tone. Even though my main reason for encouraging our children's future, I knew Obamacare would be a disaster. It has been. It's been masked by the subsidies, but for the last couple of years, I've been saying that as much as I think, and I agree with the admiral that said that our greatest threat to national security is our debt and deficit, I think right now the greatest threat to our nation is the global political divide. And I've been saying that for years. Quite honestly, when Bobby Kennedy abandoned his campaign and joined President, both men, saying this is the example you set your political differences aside, you focus on an area of agreement, in this case, chronic illness. And that would be a great example for how you actually heal the political. I've been very outspoken that I think this is a huge threat. Again, I just don't engage in it. I don't do name calling. I call a spade, tell the truth, try and point out what the situation is, but I do it without bombast. I do it without poisonous rhetoric, and certainly not name calling. So, and I think again, the telephone town halls. I don't think who supports me. Most people oppose my position. That's fine. I'm happy to answer the questions. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the comment, but I think you'll also notice that I've done it. Again, I've told people where I think they're just outright wrong, but I try and do it without without being insulting, without being bombast. But Chris, you stay on the line. Stay on the line. That was our last question because we've run out of time. Again, I think I said this earlier, our office has a 3-word mission statement: to help people. And where most of the casework occurs in the state, they take that mission statement very seriously, whether it's veterans benefits, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Again, trying to help that gentleman earlier, try and find affordable housing. My staff does an excellent job. So go to our website, either call the Oshkosh, Madison, or Milwaukee office. You can also call DC, but we're more focused on the legislation and supporting my efforts here. So contact them if you have any help. It truly is an honor serving you. I appreciate you staying on these phone calls. If you be called every time, sign up to be called every time. But have a great night.